r/ask Reddit. What innocent question that someone asked you crushed you a little? A friend looked at me and said, I know we've talked about it before, but how did you break your nose? I've never broken my nose, this is just how it looks. My grandma asked me once if I knew who she was, because she didn't. Absolutely heartbreaking. I worked in retail when I was younger and people would always be like, oh, do you have any ideas for Father's Day? What did you get your dad? My dad committed suicide when I was 16. They had no way of knowing that, but damn if it didn't hurt. I've lost both my parents now, but mum as a kid, yes, I'd love to make a Mother's Day card in school a couple of months after she ducking died. Thanks, Duck. I always thought it was so ducked up to do Mother's Day stuff in school. I am so lucky with my parents. They are alive and awesome. But I had friends whose parents were shitty dead and always felt so bad during those Mother's Day tributes. When me and my dad and my sister were driving to another town to get away from my mom so we could eat without getting yelled at, stuff thrown at us, my sister asked why mommy was so mean, and my dad had to simplify to her level that her mom was an alcoholic. She was 6. Edit. Oh shit, this blew up THX I guess. Rough night last night, usually asked with a big smile. I was asked that all the time when I was younger because I had a really obvious tremor. Thing is, I did not drink or do drugs at all and I had no idea what was wrong with me. I was eventually diagnosed with Graves' disease and treated for it, but I still have a bit of a tremor. I had hypothyroidism, then underwent radioactive iodine treatment and am now hypothyroid. My lips were often blue and I was always pale and cold with sunken looking eyes until we got my medicine on track. People asked me all the time if I was sick because I looked like I was dying. Thyroid shit really ducks you up. And when you try to explain it, no one knows what a thyroid even is. Coworker innocently asked, who does the cooking at your house? I had very recently separated from my wife and was living alone. Chef Boyardee. Sometimes Miss Calendar. If I'm lucky, Betty will bring by a treat or two. I also sometimes stop by Aunt Jemima's place for a late breakfast. I went to get a haircut for my fiance's funeral. It was Friday. He had died on Tuesday. My stylist, all bubbly, said, it's been a while. The last time I saw you, you were just about to move in with your boyfriend. How's it going? The word stuck and I kind of rasped it out. Honestly though, her reaction was so wonderful. She was behind me and just put her hands firmly on my shoulders and looked me in the eyes in the mirror. No shock, no stupid platitudes, just silent, genuine empathy. The rest of the haircut was pretty quiet, but she did everything so, like, lovingly, and didn't make a big deal out of it when I cried a little. That is a beautiful, touching story. Thanks for sharing. How are you handling everything? My notary public, who also happens to be my boss's boss while notarizing my divorce paperwork. Completing a divorce packet with no help from an attorney can be a real pain in the ass. But at least it kept me focused on the bureaucratic bullshit nonsense part of it rather than the fact that my 9-year marriage was ending. Turned out that as soon as someone asked me sincerely how I was doing, the answer was not at all well. I went back to my desk and had a panic attack. She gets half of that panic attack, you know? Mayo, I wish. Why don't you ever go out? Well, because I don't have anyone to go out with. Damn. Same. All of my friends are married, so being the single Pringle makes it hard to hang out with any of them anymore. My best friend flat out told me it's hard to include me in things because I'm always the odd one out. I already knew that, but damn, it hurt to actually hear it. I take my dogs out on walks. That's the extent of going out for me. Otherwise I'm a total hermit. I had no friends in summer school and a girl asked me if I had any friends. Like straight up. Do you have any friends? Then became friends with me, but still. Did she have any friends? Yeah, she did, but I didn't. I literally didn't know what to say since I was so shocked that someone would ask that. When are you due? I wasn't pregnant. Have since lost over 60 pounds though. Had that happen. 2. I get it. Horizontal stripes, and the co-worker had known me for years of struggling with an illness that kept me dangerously underweight. I was finally getting back to a healthy body, but he wasn't privy to my medical struggles. He was so embarrassed over the comment he started working from home the next week. specialist appointment and they did the normal thing of checking contact details. They asked if the contact number and details for my wife were still correct. I started crying. My wife passed away this time 12 months ago. Surprising how much one simple question asked in total innocence can bring you to your knees. Sorry about your wife. Hope you're doing okay. My brother recently went through this at the air. Checking info from a past visit. They asked if my dad was still the emergency contact. He'd died less than a month prior. It was like getting punched in the chest. I always wanted to study psychology in college, but my overbearing mother wouldn't have that, so I studied chemistry. In my last semester I took an abnormal psychology class just for fun and I crushed it, ending with a 99% average. After the final, my professor took me outside the classroom and said, "Why didn't you major in psychology? You would have made a great psychologist." That really crushed my soul. I think about that day a lot. What do you see when you look in the mirror each morning? My friend was having some body issues and she asked me this question since I was one of the most confident people she knew. She learned maybe a bit too much that day. When will you get better so you can play with us? My niece, who was too young to understand what disabled meant. She's older now and understands I will never get better. And we have adapted playtime to do things I can handle as well. But that broke my heart. Non-verbal. But the nurse at the flu shot station seemed unsure whether to give me the under 65 or over 65 consent form. If I'm going to be mistaken for being that much older than my actual age, at least it should be in the context of me getting a senior discount. My grandma's hair has been stark white since she was 23, and she has been getting offered senior discounts since she was about 30. She used to get offended, but now sees it as a sorta life hack. She still hasn't hit 65. Why do you work in a factory when you have an honors degree in physics? Someone once asked me, don't you want to be a mom? Yes, I do. But as I'm single, over 40 and not rich, that's probably not going to happen, and it devastated me. I had to say yes, I'd love that, and then excuse myself to go home and cry. My mom accidentally called me after about 10 years of not talking. I answered all ready for a serious conversation. When I answered, she was like, "Wait, who's this?" I say, "Hey mom, it's Fraggle Rocks." Her reply is, "What hurt? Fraggle Rocks who? Why are you calling me mom?" She was so drunk high she didn't recognize her own daughter's name. Ducky. So when are you going back for your master's degree? I was so proud of getting my bachelor's and had no intention of going back because how rough school was for me. I didn't even get my bachelor's. I found a job I liked and I was good at, and made a good career by working hard and learning on the job. It took me about 10 years before the question, "Why don't you go and get your bachelor's?" stopped hurting, and I didn't feel like a failure being reminded that I didn't finish school. I could never imagine getting cancer at such a young age. How are you this strong, brave? Do you stay so positive? I've stopped counting the amount of people, especially working at the hospital. I'd expect a bit more sensitivity from them that have asked me that. Yes, I'm mid-20s, but it's not a choice that I'm staying strong. It's ducking survival. Every time someone asks me that, it feels like getting punched. I teach first grade and was talking about how I've been married for 5 years. One student asked, "How could you not have a baby by now?" Not wanting to explain multiple miscarriages and IVF to a classroom of 6-year-olds, I said, "Being around all of you makes my heart so full that I don't think I have room in my heart for a baby." They all smiled. I smiled too. I've learned from my experience to never ask couples when if they want to have a family. Ducking hurts. And it can go the other way too. We had been struggling to have kids until we finally saw a fertility specialist who immediately diagnosed the root cause and prescribed medication that helped. Same as you. We didn't feel this was a topic we really needed to mention to anybody though. All the while, my wife's older sister had been telling everybody that she had no interest in having kids of her own. We took this at face value initially, but then on a whim we decided to tell her my wife's medical history, as these things often run in the family. And who would have thunk? 2 months later, my sister-in-law was pregnant too. She'd just been too shy to tell anybody about the real reason she didn't have kids. Sometimes, communication is a good thing, and all the best of luck to you. Elementary school teachers do an amazing job. Thank you so much. my son undergoing chemo and radiation treatment for a bone marrow transplant. People, meaning well of course, would always ask how's your son doing. I'd always have to fake a smile and give some shallow hopeful answer he's fine. He's a fighter, but deep inside the question crushed me every time. No, he was suffering, teetered on the brink of life and death. He was not fine, and every time I heard that question I was reminded of it and had to swallow the pain. My son has since recovered, but it was a very tough time. One day I said to my mom I was going out with friends and she asked, "You have friends?" It was a joke, but damn, I felt that so hard. Oh man, a diss from your mama is always a sucker punch. I got asked why I won't stand up straight for a photo. I have kyphosis and am standing up as straight as I can. Back in 6th grade we were watching a film in my science class. Of course, my table took this opportunity to just chat. Don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but my friend finds out I didn't know the word vagina. Knew the body part, just not the term. I didn't get to explain that to the table because his immediate response was, "Didn't your dad ever have the talk with you?" I spent the rest of the period with my head down crying. My friend kind of freaked out. He demanded that no one at the table say anything sex related because he thought that maybe I was crying cause I wasn't mature enough to talk about that stuff yet. I told him later that night on RuneScape that my dad had been arrested about a year or two ago and that was the reason for my reaction. I'm 25 now and deaf over it. LOL. But at the time that question destroyed me. It was good though, he was the first person I'd talked about it with and it brought us closer at the time. Damn, that one's really rough. Sounds like an honest mistake though, and it seems while messy your friend's intentions were pure. Someone jokingly asked me if I was high because my eyes were red. I had just been diagnosed with an eye disease and told I would go blind before 50. My eyes were red from my medicated eye drops and partially from crying. I was only 16 and having a hard time coming to terms with it. Why don't you have any kids? Sometimes it really bothers me when people ask me this. Because I can't have kids. Because I don't want kids. Because I want to wait to have kids. It's such a loaded question. Woman face palming. Why don't you live with your parents? I live with my grandparents because I didn't want to live with my abusive stepmoms on both sides of the family. They all live down in Texas while I'm in Colorado. Still hurts a little when people ask, though. Table for how many? The first time we went out for dinner after my dad completed suicide. That one hit like a truck. I have a tattoo on my chest that's a song title of my favorite band. I had the tattoo artist do it in the font style of their logo. It's in a runic looking style font and says my own savior. The S in savior is kinda center of my chest. After about 3 years of having this tattoo now, someone at my new job last week cornered me asking what kind of S that is. Pretty much insinuating that it was some Nazi bolt S or something. I had to pull up a picture of the band logo to show it wasn't, but duck, it still bothers me. I'm constantly hoping now that no one thinks I'm a Nazi a-hole with this tattoo. You're so great. Why are you still single? Speaking to my coach the other day, she asked me how are you feeling, and I honestly did my best not to cry my eyes out. I just got out of school and have to figure out what I wanna study next year while balancing 3 jobs that barely gives me enough for rent. So, I feel bad, to be honest. I dropped out of university a few months back because I wasn't happy. I've since moved home and sometimes at work, people I haven't seen in a while will approach me and ask how school is going. It was my decision to leave university, but when people ask it about, I can't help but feel judged when I say I've dropped out. If my girlfriend at the time was my daughter, we're only 2 years different in age, but I look old AF. I was only 22 LOL. Is she your girlfriend? No mom, I was just rejected. Just happened recently actually. A few years ago I had a pretty awesome life. I was married. My husband and I were trying to have kids, and when I needed a car we just got me and Sav in anticipation for needing it for kids. He had 2 and we planned to have 3. Well, things didn't work out and he ended up dying from drinking himself to death in January, and between that and 2 miscarriages, an ectopic and an IVF cycle that failed, I'm slowly coming to the realization that I'll never be a mother. It's painful to say the least. The kid I nanny for was sitting in my car and we were discussing his day when he says, "Nanny, why do you have such a big car when it's on you?" I wanted to cry right there on the spot. It just really stung. But instead I told him it was because I knew I would be watching him and I needed a car big enough for him, which seemed to placate him, and he then started discussing Batman with me. Who died? It was a common question my friends and I asked each other when we were sitting there looking mopey. Usually we were just staring off and nothing was wrong. On this day I'd lost one of my soldiers when I was in the army to suicide. It was only a year after we came home from overseas. I looked at him and broke right down. "Why don't you ever talk? Are you unsociable?" By a classmate when I was in high school. As someone with severe social phobia who was struggling to hide it at all costs and to be normal at the time, I died a little inside. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.